Hello, my name is Elaine Ponce. I'm a visual artist, a teaching artist with the Shadeland Center for Community Arts. My pronouns are she, her, as well as they, them. And today we're going to be making zines. We'll be participating in our own zine gift economy, where we'll be gifting and making and sharing different information and different education about our own interests. Zines are mini magazines. They cover anything from food and sports all the way to fandoms and specific interests that you might have. There's zines about art, there's zines about buses, there's zines about blue whales. It really could be anything that you find interesting. We're going to start by going over our materials and the different things that we'll have, and then we'll get into how we're going to make our zine. So, with a zine, you need your eraser, in case there's any happy accidents, a pencil, so you can write down your ideas and sketch down your drawings, a pen, in case you want darker lines. I have a few different options for pens here. I have a ballpoint, a pen with a defined tip, a nib, and a brush pen that lets us have thick or thin lines. I also have a marker here. When you're making your own zine, you can decide whether you want to use markers, colored pencils, pens, ink, paint. The sky is the limit. Lastly, I have some scissors that we'll be using to cut the paper for our zine, and a glue stick for when we're ready to make our zines get put together should we have an extra long zine. Now, let's get into the idea of how we're going to be making zines. I have a zine with us right now. This one's about birds. It's a very important zine to me. I really like birds. This one's about common desert birds. It has pictures of different birds. It has descriptions of different birds. And at the very back, it also has a catalog, a checklist, where you can check off different birds that you've seen, different birds that you might have seen flying over you, or different birds that you might have seen at a distance. My zine today will be about birds, but your zine can be about whatever you like. Now, let's get into some specific terms, some words, some vocab, so that we can make our zine. There's 5 main points that I want to hit: line, value, text, and scale. So, when we're thinking about line, we can think about just straight lines. We can think about how a line might curve. We can think about how a line might be jagged and make zigzags. We can also think about how lines might overlap each other. If we start having lines that crisscross each other, this is called cross-hatching. If we have lines that just continue next to each other, we can think of this as hatching. So we have cross-hatching. Or if it's just the one, we have hatching. The point of having these different terms is so that we know what we're working with. If we want our zine to have lots of squiggly lines and be a colorful, loopy mess, that's great. If we want our zine to be very concise, very together, every line has a purpose and every line is there for a specific reason, that's a different way to achieve a different result. Next, let's think about value. In our zine, especially if we have a zine that's just going to be black and white, or a zine that's going to have a lot of text, we want to think about where our values are going to be. Value is usually what we think of as light or dark. Our darkest value might be completely filled in, and as we step down in value, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter until eventually it is just the blank of the page that you're on. We can have an even darker value if we use a darker tool. So here, I can make my value get even darker if I decide to use pen. If I decide to use ink, that's going to be darker than pencil ever could, just because it's a different material. An important part of zines is text. Now, this is my handwriting. This is my handwriting if it's in all caps. This is well and good. We love having handwriting in a zine, but you might want to think about a few different things. One, how cleanly your handwriting is. If I'm writing my handwriting and I don't really care if people are going to be able to read it. This might be a little bit more difficult for anyone to understand what our zine is about than this. Take your time with your writing. If you take your time and make sure the writing is clear, then your zine might be a little bit more successful. Similarly, if we want something to stand out really well, we can make it big special letters. I like using block letters because block letters are quick, easy, but still get the point across of being really stand out. We can see an example here in my bird zine. Easy field guide to common desert is less important, but birds was very important. On each page, there's a title. This is the hooded oriole. It has a big section at the middle where it's bolded, and then the description is less important, so it's just in normal text. The zine that we'll be practicing on today is going to be about a turkey vulture. This is my favorite bird in California. You see here I even wrote in my own zine about where I had seen it, at the bubble in Mount St. Helena. My zine is going to focus on the description that we have here that reads, "Look above on any hot summer day, and you are likely to spot a large bird that soars and glides, seldom flapping its wings. The front part of the underwings is darker than the rear part. The bird is most likely a turkey vulture. This so-called buzzard of Western movies, its primary food consists mostly of dead animals. Vultures have amazing eyesight and could see for greater distances than people can. At close range, note the small, reddish, bare head." So this description just tells us a bit about the turkey vulture. If I were making a zine and I had more information to add than what this book has, I would be so excited to share that with other people. The other thing I want to talk about before we continue is scale. If we have something very small that takes up a very small section of our long zine, it's going to be less important to us than something that's very large that might take up multiple of our pages. Similarly, if I want to make a point, if I have something very important to say about the turkey vulture, it might be the only thing that I have for an entire page. Now that we've talked about the different things that we can use to emphasize our zine and the different ways we can work on it, let's go over the steps that we need to make a zine. All of our zines will start off as just one piece of paper. We're going to take this sheet of paper and fold it in half, like a hot dog, doing our best to get our corners as close as we can together. The closer you get your corners together, the neater you make your cut, the neater you make your fold, the neater your end product and finished zine will be. I'm folding it one way and then folding it back on itself so that I can get this crisp, clean line down the middle. And then I'm going to take my scissors, and I'm right-handed, so I'm going to hold my paper with my left hand and start cutting down the center. That gives me 2 identical strips of paper. I'm going to set one off to the side, and we're going to start folding our zine. First, we fold it in half, short sides together. Then we fold it back, short sides together. I'm then going to flip my page over and fold it one last time. This is the first part of our accordion book. Now, you could play a wonderful French ballad. But here's the important part. This is one section of the accordion. If you want your book to be 1, 2, 3, 4 pages long, that's totally fine. If you want this book to flip over and continue to 5, 6, 7, 8, totally great. But the nice thing about the accordion books is that if we want our zine to be longer, we can make it longer and longer. If you have a lot to say, which I sometimes do about turkey vultures, you can make your zine as long or as short as you want. Ideally, our zine is at least the pages that are in our first accordion book. So, at least these front 4. Now, we look at our sample zine that I have over here, we can see how we can lay it out. This is my sample about the turkey vulture, and I want this one to be 6 pages long. So I took my first page, I put my title, Turkey Vultures, and my name, Elaine. I then numbered my pages, 1, 2, 3. The important part about the accordion book is that every time that we add pages together, we're going to lose a page. So when we use our glue, it'll connect our last page on our first accordion with our first page on our last accordion. Once we have all these pieces together, that's when we would glue it together. But don't glue until you have your zine completely printed and copied and ready. Here, I'm just putting a big X so that I can remember that there is not going to be anything on these pages. That's when I continued marking it 4, 5, 6. If I kept adding my pages together, the numbers would just go up in multiples of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so on, so on, so on. Now, here's where I can think about how I'm going to put my zine and what's going to be more or less important in my zine. I might mark out certain areas that I want text to go. Here, on pages 4, 5, 6, I marked those out with circles. I filled in some gibberish, and I put my title here. I want to talk about the turkey vulture's talons. They have really sharp claws that they use to grab onto things and to cut, but not so much to pick up and fly things away with. So I put a little description here, a little bit of filler. You can feel free to use lines as your filler. You can feel free to have your text be completely full and fill up the whole page, but we might want to think about where things are going to go ahead of time. Here I have a couple of bubbles where a stick figure is going to be telling you about the turkey vulture. So here I put in my bubble, and I put in some lines to be filler. This is where it might be a good idea on a scratch piece of paper to write down the exact words that you want to use in your zine. If I want to start with a welcome, if I want to say, hello, this is a turkey vulture, if I want to start copying the description that I have in my zine about birds, then I'm going to write out that whole section, see how big it is physically on the retail of the paper in my handwriting, in block lettering, in all caps, in a way that's clear to read. The important part about this is writing everything out so that you can see how much space you actually need. If I set aside my sheet of paper, I fill in my sheet with words, and then I say, this is going to go on page 1, this is going to go on page 2, this is going to go on page 3. It might turn out that the amount of information that I've written for page 2 actually needs to be cut. And actually this needs to be for page 2, and this needs to be for page 3, and then another page for page 4. And your zine suddenly becomes a little bit longer. That's totally okay, but we want to make sure we do that before we're filling it in permanently. Similarly, if I have my drawing, I want to think about how my drawing is going to end up looking. An accordion book folds up, so starting on my first page, I'll then unfold it and unfold it again. This drawing takes up the whole first page of my accordion book so that whoever opens it gets a full picture and I could spend time drawing that. My second one, I imagine, is going to be more text heavy. So I might have some small single drawings. Maybe I'll have a drawing like is in this book of my turkey vulture. And maybe I'll have a drawing up here, or maybe I'll put another header up here. It's important for us to think about this ahead of time so that we can reduce any happy accidents. This is where we might also want to think about, after we get our drawing down, where we might want to outline things in ink, either with a pen or with a marker. And we also want to think about color. I want my zine to be mostly black and white, but here's an important thing that I want to highlight. At close range, note the small reddish bare head. That's the only color that I want in my zine, is the small red of the turkey vulture's head. So this is where I might color out the turkey vulture's head here. I might color in the turkey vulture's head here. And I'm just going to highlight the select places where I want this specific color. If your whole zine is going to be full color, then by all means, use your full colors and fill in your whole zine. Zines are really exciting, and I want you guys to all collaborate with whoever's in your classroom that might share interests with you. Thank you guys for taking part in the creative process with me. This is your economy of education that you're going to share in, so any knowledge that you might have that someone else might be interested in, join together and make a wonderful zine together. Look to your teacher for further instruction, and happy zine making.